Every nation has a day it never forgets, a day when time split into before and after. For the Gambia, that day was July 22nd, 1994. Before, a small democracy, imperfect but civilian. After, a country ruled by soldiers. They were young, mostly in their 20s, unknown to the public. But by sunrise, they held the state, the guns, and the future. They called it a revolution. They promised reform. They vowed to return power to the people. 30 years later, we ask a simple but uncomfortable question. What became of the men who took the Gambia? This is Bitilo-In-Depth, and my name is Hydara. In the early hours of July 22nd, soldiers quietly moved from the barracks at Yundum and Hydara. No tanks, no airstrikes, just speed, coordination, and surprise. By the time Banjul woke up, State House had fallen. President Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, who had ruled since independence, fled into exile, ending nearly 3 decades of uninterrupted civilian rule. On the radio, a calm but unfamiliar voice announced the takeover. It belonged to Lieutenant Yahya Jammeh.
A peaceful takeover from the PPP regime took place yesterday, the 22nd of July, 1994. The PPP government has been overthrown and an Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council headed by Lieutenant Yahya Jammeh has been instituted. The reasons for this takeover are basically that the PPP government was supposed to be democratic and accountable, but this was never the case, as there has never been an independent electoral commission. There was rampant and outrageous corruption to a scale that the nation's coffers were looted by few individuals who, for the past 3 decades, made sure that they remained at the top.
Behind him stood 4 others: Sanna Sabally, Edward Singhateh, Sadibou Hydara, Yankuba Toure. Together, they formed the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council, the AFPRC. They claimed the coup was about corruption, about discipline, about saving the nation. Many Gambians, tired and frustrated, listened, and some even applauded. But coups rarely end the way they begin. Yahya Jammeh was not the most senior officer involved in the coup, but he was the most ambitious. What began as a collective leadership soon revolved around one man. Jammeh promised elections, but first he consolidated control. He sidelined rivals, he tightened his grip on the military, and he learned quickly that fear was more effective than popularity. By 1996, Jammeh had traded his uniform for a suit and declared himself a civilian president. And for the next 22 years, he ruled with absolute authority. His government would later be accused of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, torture, sexual violence, witch hunts, and the crossing of dissent. Journalists fled, opponents disappeared, silence became survival. Yet power never lasts forever. In 2016, Jammeh lost an election he never believed he could lose. After regional pressure and the threat of force, he fled, not to trial, but to exile. Today, Yahya Jammeh lives in Equatorial Guinea, guarded, isolated, and politically toxic. The TRRC has named him as the central figure in crimes against the Gambian people. A special court has been approved to try the most serious cases of his era. From the pinnacle of power to a life lived looking over one's shoulder. If Jammeh embodied ambition, Sanna Sabally embodied force. As vice chairman of the AFPRC, Sanna was feared, even within the junta itself. He was central to the events of November 11, 1994, when soldiers accused of plotting against the junta were executed. It was the first time Gambians realized the revolution could kill its own, but power inside the AFPRC was unstable. By 1995, Jammeh accused Sabally and fellow council member Sadibou Hydara of plotting against him. Sabally was arrested, tortured, and imprisoned. Hydara would not survive. Sabally spent nearly a decade behind bars, beaten, isolated, and forgotten. Then came an unexpected twist. Years later, Sabally returned voluntarily to testify at the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission. On national television, he admitted responsibility, he apologized, he asked for forgiveness. Today, Sabally lives largely outside public life, between Senegal and Germany, trained in trauma care, a former perpetrator now dealing with the wounds of others. His story raises a difficult question. Can truth coexist with accountability? Every coup needs planners. Edward Singhateh was that man. Disciplined, methodical, and strategic, Singhateh played a key role in organizing the takeover and stabilizing the junta after internal rifts. After Sabally's fall, Singhateh rose, becoming vice chairman and minister of defense. But the TRRC would later link him to some of the most serious crimes of the era, including killings, torture, and the murder of Finance Minister Ousmane Koro Cissé. Despite this, Singhateh would later reinvent himself internationally, serving as the ECOWAS Vice President for Peace and Security. A man accused of atrocities, now tasked with protecting regional peace. When the TRRC released its findings, Singhateh retreated from public view. Today he keeps a low profile, his future uncertain, his past catching up. Among the AFPRC, Sadibou Hydara was often described as the intellectual, thoughtful, politically aware, which is dangerous in a system built on suspicion.
These vehicles
when Jammeh turned on him, Hydara was detained and tortured. In 1995, he died in custody. The regime said it was illness. The TRRC would later say it was torture. Hydara's death was an early warning that the revolution would consume not only its enemies, but its architects. Yankuba Toure was a powerful figure, Minister of Local Government, AFPRC member and close ally of Jammeh. For years, he lived freely. When summoned by the TRRC, he refused to testify, claiming immunity. But the courts disagreed. In 2021, Yankuba Toure was convicted of murder for the killing of Finance Minister Ousmane Koro Cissé. In 2025, the Supreme Court upheld his conviction, commuting his death sentence to life imprisonment. For the first time, an AFPRC member faced full accountability at home. The message was clear: no title lasts forever. Beyond the well-known names are others whose stories rarely make headlines. Soldiers like Basiru Barrow and Dot Fall executed during the November 11 purge. Families who waited decades for answers. Bodies buried without truth. It took more than 20 years and a truth commission for many of these stories to be heard. Justice delayed does not erase the pain, but truth gives it a name. The fall of Jammeh did not erase the past, it exposed it. The TRRC laid bare the crimes of the AFPRC era and beyond. The government accepted most of its recommendations. A special court supported by ECOWAS and the African Union now looms. Meanwhile, courts in Europe have already convicted former regime officials. The long shadow of July 22nd is finally being confronted. 30 years later, the men who seized the Gambia are scattered, some in exile, some in silence, some in prison, some in graves. Their choices reshaped a nation, and their legacy leaves us with one final question. What do we do with power when it is suddenly ours?